welcome back to another episode of CATV Tech Talk. I'm Drew, your host, here with Jesse. Jesse, how's it going, man?
What's up, dog?
Trying to recoup from a long weekend. How about yourself?
Oh, man, I feel you. It's been a long week, but we're doing good. This weekend was, I'm with you, dude. It's been a crazy weekend. I was up yesterday morning. I actually felt like I was working yesterday. I felt like it was more of work because I got up earlier than I normally would, and I had to drive an hour away for my son's football game, and then I had to drive an hour back, and then we had a bunch of birthday parties and shit, and that didn't end till like midnight. And then you know how after you finish like a work day or any day where you're just like, oh, it's over. Then I had to like wind down. It was like 2 a.m. before I went to bed, and hell, then I got up again at 6 o'clock because I can't ever sleep past 6 or 6:15. So yeah, it's just been. I think this weekend was rougher than this week. But
Yeah.
it is.
No,
But big shout out to my big dog. My son's football team's 5-0. We had a 43-13 win. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Woo!
And the kid's got 17 touchdowns in 5 games.
Damn. When
I'm gonna throw that out there. I'm proud. Yeah. If he would just quit being an asshole, we'd be doing good, man.
I mean, he is your son, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, he's a definitely. I'm gonna get him a shirt that says "Future Asshole of America."
Oh, that's awesome. I spent the entire weekend, probably 12 hours I probably spent close to a full work week this weekend trying to build out my new company truck. And I say I've literally spent all weekend, and my poor wife, aka our producer, who might I just give a shout out to right now. She does a great job. Unfortunately, none of our listeners really hear her, but the amount of stuff she does and that we couldn't do it without her. But she held on hard this weekend, and she helped me actually move everything out of my old work van and into my new one. And
yeah, give her props, man. We couldn't do this without her.
no, absolutely not. She does so much stuff for us in the background. Jesse's constantly texting her all day long, asking her for things, and she's definitely she takes a lot of crap from us, and she does a lot. So
absolutely. But she always responds like at a pretty reasonable time, and I was like, hey, I need this, and she'll send it over or whatever, and that's awesome, you know.
And I mean, actually, a lot of our listeners should be thankful because she takes out a lot of my yeah, see, look, I just did it again. So tries to cut out all that constant crap that I just continue to mutter. But anyways, so today's episode, one of most tech's favorite, no, not even favorite. I can't even try to bullshit about this one because I know
there's nothing favorite about it, man. Nobody likes this shit at all.
Actually, I have to say, this is probably the first episode that I'm not going to like recording because I don't even like talking about it. It doesn't even affect me anymore, and I don't even like talking about it.
Well, in a way, before we even go into what it is or why, I will say this. I was very competitive in terms of like my day-to-day, and with this in particular, I was very competitive. So I think in a way, for me, if they hadn't have been there, I'd have probably been a shitty ass tech. So I'd have been like, oh, fuck that damn drop. I don't care. It's got 9 barrels in it. They can call back next week. Fuck them.
I have to say, this topic didn't mean, oh God, I don't even want to say it because it's just going to make me sound like a terrible tech. I didn't care. I had very, very little care in the world about it. To me, it was more about just putting the effort behind it and not staring at it because I felt a lot of guys just dwelled on it and it made it worse for them than making it better. And needless to say, that's not everybody. But today's episode is actually a suggestion from one of our fans, Payo M.
Yeah.
Payo M from Long Beach, California, wrote in asking for an episode with, drumroll. No, is that still not in our budget? Fuck. All right. Episode on metrics. Fucking
metrics.
Fucking god damn it. I don't even, it's like, God.
It makes your, like metrics in general, like every month you're like, fuck, I've had 2 repeats. If I get another one, I've only done like 16 jobs so far. That's going to put me, and you're like counting in your head, like, I'm so fucked. And the thing about it is, like, I understand there should be like, you should be held accountable for what you're doing. But as times went on, and we'll talk about this a little later, but like I got my sheet here from 2012. I don't know, I found it just looking through a bunch of shit in my closet. 2012. Now metrics are so much different 8 years later, but even in 2012 is when they went from, we used to get, I think it was 10.5% back in 2008. And then they squeezed it to, this one says 7.5% on repeats. So I don't know what the current number is out there in different companies, but 7.5% is pretty tight,
But I want to say, and again, please don't quote me. If anybody out there listening is going to hear it and immediately be like, "No, he's wrong." I'm pretty sure it was around like 4.7 when I left.
That's fucking tight, man.
It was.
And that's tight, dude. Because you got to think, you can go into a perfect job and there's nothing, wrong with the cabling, with the equipment. The customers, they don't think of that, the human error. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That human error exists. And I don't feel like tech should be held accountable for the human error. And that's what it is. Like if they fucking unplug something and can't hook it back up, or their TV fucks up or whatever. Now, if you get a legitimate repeat, that's okay. I mean, that's your fucking fault. But and then with that being said, legitimate repeats sometimes aren't your fault. So if you think about it, like in the winter and in the summer, cable contracts and expands, due to temperature. There could be a connector that just kind of loosened up or something, something that's kind of out of your control. But, that's a one-off kind of thing. Or, say maybe you didn't change that one wall plate. You've seen guys there in a hurry. That shit kind of happens sometimes. But for the most part, if you do a good job with the cabling and the equipment's installed correctly and the equipment's good, that's something else. That's the company's fault if the equipment's bad, right? So I don't feel like that should roll down on the tech either. But 4.7, that's fucking crazy. Actually, since you're on that right now, I'm going to pull this up before we get into this show. All right, listeners out there.
Have not started?
Well, I guess we have. Well, right now we're just bitching about metrics.
Buddy, I hate to tell you this, but that's the whole goddamn episode.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening. All right, this is 2012 rework for myself, yours truly. And now I would have made the 4.7 every month for 12 months, except for August. I had 6.67%. But I was the exceptionally fucking badass tech, so I'm just going to throw that out there. In 12 months, I did 585 jobs. I had 11 repeats. I had a 1.88. I can't fucking read anymore. 1.88% rework.
All right.
Which shows that I am a badass tech.
All right, Mr. Badass. Before you fucking even go anywhere near any of those other numbers, what you missed in lates?
My missed appointments?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me get to that. All right.
No.
No, I'm going to read it to you. Missed appointments was 2% was the metric. So you had to have under 2% missed appointments. I did not make that at all fucking year. Okay? I had 535 jobs. I missed 30 of them. So my year-to-date number was 5.61%. All right, I'm going to read this off to you. I missed 7.41% in January, 4.35 in February, 10.45 in March, 5.26 in April. No, I got close to the metric number in May. I made 2.94, but I was over 5 or 6, 7% every month on missed appointments.
I was going to say 10.5. That's literally getting rid of one job or being late once a day, every day.
Well, that month I had 67 jobs and I missed 7 of them.
67 jobs, 67. So, well, no, I was gonna say 2 a day, but so that ranges anywhere between 2 to 4 jobs a day.
Yeah, but when you're fucking in my system and you're rewiring fucking everything because shit's hanging out of windows and gutters, you know, I mean, it's kind of you kind of have to pick your poison, man.
No.
I wanted a good repeat percentage. Well, I had to give up my missed appointments. So I was like, well, I'm just going to be fucking late, but I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And everything in terms of why the shit works is good. Me being there on time, I think Comcast can afford giving them people $20 back then. So fuck it.
And I mean, and that really goes for any company. I mean, I feel that.
Well, I'm not going to say like Cox or Charter or any of these other. I don't know that they give out like money if you're late. I just
Yeah.
remember that Comcast used to bitch it. Like I remember we'd have those Thursday meetings or whatever day you did it. We did ours on Thursdays.
We did ours
Big
on
boss
Wednesdays.
man, big boss man, come down to our little shop down there in Georgia and be like, "Yeah, we've our missed appointments are way up," and he'd be bitching and bitching, and he'd be like, "But our rework number's really good." So I was like, and I would tell him that. I'd be like, "Look, man, if you want to fire me, that's fine, but I'm about to piss you off." And he just look at me because I've been really mouthy my whole life. Like I have to say what I'm thinking.
No.
And I'm like, dude, you get one or the other. You're not getting both. So which one do you want? And he just look at me. Well, we need them both. Well, you need to fucking figure out a way to pick one because it's like taking your kid to the store and they grab a big car over here and a big a big action figure over here, and they're both like $40. All right, kid, you got to pick one.
Can't wipe your ass and hold a newspaper at the same time. It's not how it works.
Absolutely not. Make a choice, and that's what I did, and that's how I handled that as a tech. I was like, look, this is the way it is. I'm going to have better repeats than missed appointments, and I know that's the way it's going to go, and I don't give a fuck.
And I have to say too, just because I feel like, unfortunately, Comcast gets brought up a lot. Any of these episodes or this episode, these aren't specific to Comcast. This is every cable company out there. Me and Jesse just both previously worked for Comcast, so obviously you're going to hear more of that. It's more relevant. But we'll have people writing in about the companies they work for, not necessarily giving out who they are, so they get in trouble with their company. But we're going to talk about all of them. And again, these metrics, these are kind of across the board. The ones that we talk about today are just general metrics that kind of apply to everybody. You might not hear ones that specifically that you have that are high up on that list, but if you don't hear them, write in and let us know what they are.
Yeah, I'd like to know the difference between like company to company. Like I worked for Comcast and Charter, and they were reasonably similar. So I dare say that all the MediaCom, Cox, all these other companies, I'd say they're pretty close too.
I know, and again, I just say this isn't about Comcast. Comcast, my last year or two there, metric actually were one of the big subjects. They pretty much made it close to impossible for a CT2 to advance. The repeat, like I said, I think it was about 4.7 or something around that. And it was just crazy astronomical numbers for these guys to hit, or guys, gals, techs. And like you said, you have this equipment that's bad, or things, plant goes down, or they call in a customer service and customer service sets up an appointment, but can't cancel it at door anymore because they don't allow you to do that either. So it was just this crazy back and forth, it seemed, with the techs and higher ups. And I believe they eventually kind of leveled out. I'd like to know where they're at now, to see if they kind of met them in the middle with it. I mean, I get it. You can't just be giving these techs easy metrics so they can hit them out of the park and then constantly progress. And a company doesn't make money that way, but they have to be able to set these realistic goals, because in my opinion, if you don't set a realistic goal, what's the point of aiming for it? You're going to get these guys that are struggling that unfortunately just aren't going to give a fuck. And they're really not going to put any effort into that number because they find it a bullshit number.
Well, the people that make these metrics are sitting in a fucking office with a 9-figure bank account.
Yep.
Okay. Not six figure. These motherfuckers are crazy rich. They've never had dirt under their fingernails a day in their fucking life. And they're like, this makes sense for our bottom line. Let's roll this shit downhill. I think I've said that before. But everything rolls fucking downhill. But these people have no clue what happens on the ground floor. They
We
don't know.
assume. We assume. We can't say that they're all like that.
If there's one tech that has, and if there is a tech out there that has climbed the ladder into the corporate section of Comcast or Charter or Cox or any of these companies, I want to meet him and shake his fucking hand. Like, I'm just saying. And if he's there, you need to go to bat for the guys on the bottom floor. But I just don't fucking see that happening. I don't. I think there's there's a glass ceiling there that you're going to go so far and that's it. The majority of is you're going to go like the progression, like installer, service tech, which I mean, installer, service tech, same thing now, but installer, service tech, system tech, or if you went into construction, and then eventually you'd be a supervisor, and maybe later on, like when you're about 80 or about to retire, you'd be a manager for a few years, and that's that. But with that being said, where these metrics come from are from people that have no understanding of the job itself. And, like you said, 4.7 is fucking crazy because the lowest I ever had was right here at 7.5. And I'm going to tell you now, I think on my team, looking back on it, there was probably only 4 or 5 guys out of 12 that made that number at 7.5% on your repeats. So, and how they got to that number, and I'll explain this since we're talking about just metrics. How they did it then, I don't know how they do it now, but how they did it then was they would take your install and your trouble call count, like your count, like how many you did combined.
Yeah,
and then
combined
they would take,
SOI and repeat.
Yeah, and then they would like divide it by how many repeats you had, and that would be your number. When I first started, they had a separate metric. You had your install repeats and your trouble call repeats, and then so you were trying to hit 2 different metrics, but then they combined them. But still, 7.5% is to me was tight, but fucking 4.7%, that's crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, don't hold me to that number. Even if it was 5, I still found it crazy.
Yeah, anything under, I figure you have to have a buffer for these guys. Like you said, if it's so tight that nobody can make it, like they're just doing their work, but they're never going to get promoted. They could be doing good work and never going to get promoted. And what is going to happen there is like kind of like they do with contractors. Like well, I'm not getting paid to do this, so I'm not going to fucking do it. They're going to be like, fuck, I'm never going to advance. Fuck, I got to find something else to do.
Well, and I think that's the problem is these companies are slowly tightening up on all of their costs. So before, I mean, I remember coming in with Comcast, I blew through all of the training, moved right up the ladder to a CCT4, and then kind of just stopped after that. But it was easy. It wasn't a big chore to do. And now you have to hit every single metric in order to do any type of progression now, from what I remember when I was there, which to me is just absolutely that's near impossible. So I think what ends up happening is these companies try kind of funneling down as much as they can and tightening up cost. And I think the only reason why you have the metric alone is because it gives the company a buffer, not you. That 7.5% or even the 4.7%, those are there for those companies because when their equipment fails, the tech can point their finger at somebody else. But when their equipment fails and you have that one fitting that you missed and combined repeat absolutely destroys you, they turn around and go, well, hey, we give you the buffer. Not our fault. You need to do better. But what they're pretty much saying is, we're going to give you the buffer for all our crap to fail. You're on your own. You have to be perfect.
And that's an unrealistic thing.
It really is because again, you're just adding more stress, and a stressed tech doesn't make a good tech.
And bad morale, like this is something metrics, like in my experience, for a lot of guys, have made the morale of the job, of the office, of everything just bad.
Oh my
Like
God, yeah.
on months where, and here's the truth though, in my experience when I was a tech, we were so good in our as a group as a whole down in Georgia that we were beating the business team on metrics. Like every few months, we would beat the business team, and nobody could beat the business team
Yeah.
for the reason that the business team had 2 jobs a day. They would wire them the day before. Like if the business had problems, they would call the sales guy who would turn around and call the tech who would go over there without a job and fix it. Now this is before the vans being tracked and all that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But they would have like 1% rework or 2% like all the time, and we were beating them like every few months because we had a pretty good core group of guys. But there was, every team's got the 3 or 4 that always, leave bullshit and whatever.
Yeah.
But on the months that we were like kicking their ass, everybody, our boss was in a good mood, and the manager loved us, and everything was good, and the morale was real high. And on months where it wasn't, we would get our ass chewed as a whole. And the thing was, I would sit in the background, I'd be like, "Motherfucker, let me just use this. All right, I'm gonna go back to my sheet so I can kind of relive this. All right, say it's May. All right, say we're May, and we're all getting screamed at. Well, in May of that year, I did 44 jobs with 0 repeats, which I didn't do that often, but I did it twice in 2012. I was proud of that. And everybody's getting yelled at, and I'm sitting over here like, "Bitch, I didn't have a repeat. What are you bitching about?" So it goes back to, shit rolling downhill, but it affects morale. You got a guy who wakes up in the morning, he's like, "Fuck this shit." You're not going to get the best out of him.
No, not at all. And the more things progress, unfortunately, the tighter those metrics get, but the different types of metrics they add as well. I remember when I first started, yeah, you had to worry about home health, but when I left, it was PHT. And PHT, man, I know we've touched base on it a little here and there, but it it was a nightmare. You couldn't leave until you had green check marks everywhere, which that should be the case because you should be doing your job. But there were always those one-off situations, for example, where like Mocha fire rate might be off by like 2 points. And no matter what you do, because it's in, an in-law apartment on the other side and so on and so forth, 1,000 different reasons. Either way, you're now trying to chase something that you can't read. There is no way to read unless they've given out a tool that I'm not aware of, or I know they're out there. So I'm sure some techs have them, but not all do. When I was a technician, I had no way to measure Mocha. The only way I could measure Mocha was with a cable box, and that was a nightmare. I hated doing that. So it was really frustrating when you would get your first job of the day, close it out, and fail for Mocha and sit there and have to go through the house and try to just find this buried splitter in the wall that's causing Mocha to completely tank. And you're not allowed to leave because if you do, then it hits your metrics, which it's again downhill from there. It just affects everything else behind it. You focus on PHT, well, now your missed and lates go up because now you're spending more time. So it's like you said, you almost have to pick and choose what's worth getting hit on.
Well, I never had to do that. Like I said, I've said this before. I left Comcast in 2014, and then I was a system tech after that. So I never went through the PHT thing. I could imagine, in my opinion, what you just said, that's not good. I mean, I understand it needs to be everything should be in the green. You should have good levels, no ingress, things like that. But imagine the customer in that situation.
Oh,
Okay,
yep.
well, they fixed my shit. Why is this guy walking around my house for another fucking 2 hours?
Yep.
Right?
And we would get that all. My favorite, and I'll let you finish, but I'm too ADD. I'll forget this one. My favorite was when you would go to a home security trouble call to replace one battery, and then you go to leave and PHT would fail for Mocha.
Yeah.
And you'd look at the customer and be like, I got it. Well, there's nothing wrong with my TV. Well, no, I understand that, but this little box says that, well, I don't care what your box says. It's not. And then you got to sit there and try to explain to this customer that it's a metric and it's something the company looks for. They want you to fix it. And some of those customers just, it works. Don't fix it if it ain't broken, which I understand, because once you start fucking with it, then you might end up breaking it. But that's extremely frustrating to have to go through that.
Yeah, man. Like they Comcast or Charter or anything. I keep saying Comcast. That's where we work, but companies in general, that's something else. Like you can't force things on people. Like I feel like in that situation, and I know that guys would use or abuse it, but when they do like the post call survey, they could say like, and most people do that. Not everybody just hangs up. I'd be like, did the technician ask you or tell you had a problem with your service that needed repaired that you declined or something, right? Something like that. If a customer legitimately doesn't want you fucking with their shit, that is their house, right?
Yep.
That's their fucking house. They pay their bill. You can't make them. So that's an impossible fucking situation.
But then, see, I even go as far as looking at like this, though. If you can't even get that individual to try to get you to fix something that could possibly prevent a future issue that would make it so the customer wouldn't have to call up and deal with us coming back out again, if they're not even going to let you do that, the chances of them taking a fucking survey, that ain't going to happen. They're going to fucking bitch switch that.
I was just thinking of a way that they could code it out and say customer refusal or something, right?
And I'm just, that you've got me so riled up on these fucking metrics. My mind immediately just went to technician mode and I just went immediately negative. So I do apologize.
No, fuck, I'm with it. I just hadn't had to deal with it in a while. But I'll tell you this: if they need to have on that PHT, they need to have like if the customer, flat fucking refuses. All right, they're not letting me fix this. I can't sit here and argue with these people all day. I gotta go. There's got to be a point to that. But companies don't care. Just do it because I said so.
Yeah.
In my experience, like I said, I got out of the field in 2014 as a tech. Back then, we had upstream transmit and home search. You remember the home search?
Oh my, yep.
Yeah, I was looking at this sheet, and I'm glad I found this because we can kind of go off this, and I could talk about it.
I hate that you found it. I hate all of these metrics so much.
Upstream transmit was that's when they were starting to get ready for like X1. Like this I think this here was like the year that we worked prior to like X1 like rolling out, I think.
So this was the year that they said, oh my God, we got to hurry up and tell these guys to do it this way. That way, when we launch something, we can go, it's your fault. You haven't been doing it the way we told you to do it.
Fucking A, right. Yeah. Well, like this was the year that I think I told you this before where we were running 2 drops to houses.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. You were saying that.
Yeah. But I mean, the shit's working obviously because my upstream transmit year over year, I had 100% for the year. The metric was 97.5. I had 379 modems checked, and 379 modems were in spec. Our spec on this sheet. Remember, I said the other day I didn't know what the number was for the upstream.
Yep.
Ours was 51.5.
Okay. I think ours was 50.
Yeah, and it depends on how the system's built too. So I think that's why system to system's a little different.
Yeah.
But 51.5. So to me, that wasn't a hard metric to make because I was so good at the cabling and the signal levels and things. That was kind of my expertise. Now, when it gets to the frustrating part, the home cert thing was fucking stupid. Okay, I would sit there and I remember how the home cert worked for me was we had to run the home cert. And it would take like what 20 not 20 minutes, I don't know, 10 minutes. It took forever. Remember, it'd be like section by section checking channels and shit.
I felt like it was 10 minutes, but I think the reality of it was probably only about a minute and a half.
Well, I said 20 because it felt like for fucking ever. Yeah. But it would just sit there in like a downloading bar, across the meter. And it was like 5, 10, 20. And then it'd sit for a while, 22, sit for a while. And it took forever. But
I was gonna say like the DOCSIS. Anytime you run a DOCSIS test, it would go 1, 2, 3, and then it would just sit there at 3 and cycle for probably 5.
Yeah, forever. Yeah, man, I remember that. I didn't use DOCSIS a lot though. I'm not gonna get off topic, but I will say this: I always used that cable modem test on those DSAMs because it was so fucking quick to get just a return number, right?
Mm.
And DOCSIS would sit there and just cycle. But back to what we were saying, man. The home cert. it's kind of like that PHT test, because what would happen when you run that and say like some random fucking channel failed for like a half a dB,
Yep, that's right.
and like every fucking thing in the house is brand new, everything's working. So then you had, before you could move on, you had to go all the way, trace it back to the tap to turn around and send it over to system maintenance, or they gigged you for it.
Yep, that's right.
And then what's stupid too, on the other side of that, is on top of that, you had the ingress scan that was in the home cert. You remember that? You had the levels and the ingress scan. You had to save them both. You remember that?
I do, because for some god awful reason, they ended up bringing that back, even with the XMX. Oh my god, I keep calling them XM meters. I think they were XM meters. I gotta freaking find out. I'm 90% sure they were XM meters. So even when you got the XM meters, they still made you do an ingress test. They didn't for a while, and I want to say we had the meters for about a year. Officially, everybody had one in their hand, and then they started making you do ingress test again. It wasn't, you didn't have to do the home cert because you had the PHT, but for some reason they still made you do an ingress test.
What I didn't think was cool about it was, I think it was kind of flawed, because I would go to a tap, I'd hook to the drop, and I'd sit there and I'd watch the live stream.
Yep.
And I just shoot it for ingress. It wouldn't be nothing. It'd be flat. It'd be flat as fuck. Then you'd run the ingress scan, and it'd have a big hump right in the middle of the carriers. You're like, well, that ain't fucking there.
Yeah.
And then I'd hook it back up and be like, what the fuck? And I'd sit there and I'd stare at it. And I had a hook on my meter where I just hook it to the strand.
Yep.
And I'd just sit there and watch it. There ain't nothing there. Fuck it. So what I'd do is I'd run that shit in my truck. I'd shoot it and make sure it's clean, but I'd run the ingress scan in my truck and save it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was flawed.
I agree with you. And I did the same thing. And anybody who's listening that works for corporate, this is just a me and Jesse thing. No, nobody else really does it. But if you're a tech, you know that every one of us fucking does that from the front seat of your truck.
Absolutely, we did. and only because that fucking like, if it was legit and if it passes and you're sitting there staring at the live ingress coming from that house and nothing's there, and then you run that ingress scan and there's a big hump in your carriers, you're like, what the fuck? No wonder why I ain't wasting 5 more minutes on this bullshit. I do it on my truck driving to my next job.
Yep, absolutely. And like you said, I would still check, but I don't know. To me, it was, there are so many so many metrics, so many things running in the back of your head that you have to stay on top of, and just, it was one of those things where, I don't know, it just, I don't want to say it was inconvenient because I had to look at it anyways, but it was still inconvenient. It was, I don't know. And same even with the home certs. The home certs to me were ridiculous. But the stupidest one, which I know you did not have to deal with, we talked about this one earlier, was the downloading of the My Account app. That thing for us was a goddamn nightmare. Anytime,
you said that, and I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
So anytime you had any brand new type of install, upgrade, anything, part of your metrics, you were required to get your customer to download the My Account app and sign into it. If they did not download it and sign into it, it went against you. And man, they crunched down on that. I think you had to have a 80% success download rate. Now, where I worked the last few years as a tech was in the Northeast on the coast, so right on the ocean. Everybody up here is rich old people. Nobody downloaded apps. So you had to, or if you went to a nursing home, that was the worst. You had to try to get this customer to download a My Account app on their cell phone that they probably, I don't think Jitterbug allows you to download apps. And I don't know.
What the hell is Jitterbug?
You've never heard of Jitterbug? It's the freaking
What are you talking about?
It's the old people phone with the huge buttons on it.
No,
But
that's cool as hell though. My
yeah,
mom's got an old people computer, and the buttons are like the keyboard buttons are like the size
yeah.
of fucking like the W and the A are like the size of like half a pack of cigarettes.
See, and that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, and like there's only one icon on the whole thing. It says internet.
That's freaking amazing. Oh my god! But man,
How
those
the fuck though with the app thing? How the fuck can you be held responsible for somebody doing something with their personal property? Does that make sense at all?
no, it was absolute bullshit. There, it to me, it's still one of those. I'm just floored that they do it, and to me, it's and this is the fucked up thing because I really truly hate making cable companies sound bad because they really aren't. They're not terrible. Again, all these places need to make money, but to me it's a scare tactic. Like, if you don't promote this app because we find that it saves us money because less people call in and tie up our call centers and less people end up having trouble calls, which again is great because you are, you're causing less impact and you're causing less truck rolls, but at the same time you're trying to jam this thing down a technician's throat and tell them that if you can't successfully do this, that raise that you're trying to get, you're not going to get it this time around because you missed this one metric. You
Yeah,
missed a
that's
metric
horse shit.
because you couldn't get, again, a handful of old ladies or a handful of, anybody who doesn't have a smart device. Well, you can log them in on a computer. And how many times, I don't know. See, I was a home security technician, so the email was a huge thing to me always. It was something I always struggled with, trying to reset the password. And when I say struggle, it was just something we had to deal with. We always found tips and tricks. We could go into different programs like Einstein and end up getting it and resetting the passwords. But every time you would have an upgrade or they would transfer an email, I mean, how many people have you set up where they don't have an email or you never set them up with an email? Or I don't know.
I'd always take a book. You know how you had to give those books, those packets,
Yeah,
them
yep.
installs. I'd always write it down like on the front of the first page, and I'd when we did activation where they forced you to make a company email like a Comcast or whatever,
Yep.
and I'd write it in there, and I'd tell them, you might need that, you may not use it, you may need it at some point. Just put it in a drawer somewhere, you know where it's at. And most people probably didn't, but that's the way I handled it.
And that's what I was going to say. You're a good example of what you should have been doing the entire time, but 90% of them were not, including myself. There was plenty of times where I set up emails and never gave them to the customer because they truly didn't care at the time. But now, again, kicking ourselves in the butt because now you're required all these people that have these emails that they're not aware of to now reset their password, to download the app, to be able to log into it. And you want to know what the real kicker was?
Let me know.
Us as tech, us as technicians were always told, if you're gonna bitch, help come up with a solution, which I agree with. Nobody wants to listen to just straight up complainers. So technicians' big complaint was we need to reset these people's passwords, and they would have to call into dispatch, and dispatch would have to do it over the phone. Well, a tech found out, well, if you just text in, they actually had a prompt for it, and they would reset the customer's password via text message through dispatch. They ended up taking that away. So you had to call into dispatch.
Yeah, that's fucking ridiculous.
No. It gets
Yeah.
better. That only lasted for about 2 weeks. Then you weren't allowed to call in to dispatch to have them reset the password because it was a conflict. It was a security reason, we were told. So now you had to have your customer go into the app, click forget username, and take the steps of resetting their password that way. So
Let
now,
me break this down because now that I've heard this fuckery, you're responsible for the cable from the tap to the fucking device on every active device in that home. You're responsible for every connector, the ground, fucking everything from tap to every device. You're responsible for the equipment that you have nothing to do with. You're responsible for fixing shit that they don't know is broken and they don't want you to touch. And you're responsible for their email account And every way that was convenient to get it changed so you could do your job, they take away to make it even more difficult. And you're supposed to smile, grin, and bear it. And they're not even putting any using lube, man. Like,
And
dude,
don't forget that Apple ID that nobody ever fucking remembers their password for before they go to download the app. But yeah, they don't even spit on it first. They just
yeah, that's bad.
I
Yeah,
mean, dude, at
and
least give me lipstick. I like to look pretty before I'm fucked, but that one was. I
well, you
didn't
need you a little wig too, man. Being a little bald 5'2" guy, you know.
5'2". Whoa.
You ain't much taller, 5'4". I'll give you 5'4".
Fuck you, dude. I'm 5'7".
Yeah, no, he's 5'4". He's 5'7" in his shoes.
In my boots.
Oh no, you're 5'9" in your boots. You feel like a big man in your boots, don't you?
No, hey, y'all laugh, but you know how many freaking basement ceilings I've cleared, and how many of y'all freaking whacked your head off of them?
Oh, dude, that's man. I'm 6'2". Well, I was, and This is a funny thing I'll throw in there because when I was 18 years old, I was measured at a football camp. I was 6'2", and I was like, "Woohoo! I'm growing." And about 6 months ago, now that was when I was 18. I'm 32 now. About 6 months ago, I went to it for a physical, and doctor said, "You're 5'11" and a half. What the fuck?
Jesus.
I said, "How?" And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "I'm 6'2". She goes, "Sir, you're not 6'2". I said, "Well, when I was 18, I was 6'2". And I'm assuming, I guess when you get older, I had some back problems and shit, but yeah, I'm closer to 6 foot than you, bitch.
I was gonna say the baby mama freaking took your height. She pulled your spine right out from you. Jesus.
Yeah, and she gave it to Zach, I guess. That little son bitch. He's all legs. But but yeah, man, this whole thing, dude. Like, guys, I want to say to our listeners, we are a little bitchy today because metrics suck. But we understand that you're going through it now, and it really fucking sucks. Like, you're required to do so much more now than I ever went through, especially listening to Drew right now, man. A lot of that shit, I'd have been like, "Fuck you, I ain't doing that." Like, everything's good, it's working. It's all this nitpicking bullshit. Like, that's ridiculous, man. I actually feel bad for everybody. I feel worse for these guys now doing this episode than I did when we started.
I mean, my problem is I am a realist, so I do understand it from both sides, and I understand why the company does it. Like we say, there's good techs out there and there's bad techs out there, and unfortunately, those bad techs ruin it for the good techs. I like to think of myself as a hybrid tech. I was an asshole and not a spectacular tech, but when I needed to be, I definitely pulled it out. And I was one of those guys where I never took advantage of it, but every once in a while I'd pull the stupid moves, but I wouldn't be doing it all the time just to get caught. It's you take little bites, not big bites.
I worked with a lot of guys, man, back in the day you might remember this, and we'll kind of wrap up metrics. We've kind of had enough bad morale this evening.
Yeah, no shit.
With that being said, man, I worked with this one guy. I actually seen him the other day. I hadn't seen him in years. I ran into him at a gas station. His name was Brandon, and he would always, back in the day, you could do a job and then put an SRO behind it, and then it wouldn't repeat you, right? So he would do a job, and then he put like a replace drop or what they call those, verify service. I think that's what they were called, verify services, where you'd go and check tag numbers or something. And once it got completed, you can't get repeated on an SRO.
Yeah.
But this is before they went back to the trouble call. Like, if there was a trouble call in an SRO, like a tech assist, after a while they caught on to guys doing that, and they would go, but they changed it to where it would go back to the last trouble call or install. But forever, man, every job he did, you would see his tech number, you would see the trouble call, you would see his tech number, you would see the SRO. Like, every fucking job. And dude, you'd go out there and every 59 lines hanging out the fucking drop ceiling. It was fucked.
Oh, Jesus. Actually, you made me just think of another bullshit metric. I remember as a home security technician, when they started doing tandems, when you would have one technician that comes in and does the triple side of it, and then you have the other technician that comes in and does the home security side of it. God, I don't even see. It still makes me sick to my stomach even talking about it. Depending on who closed out their job first,
got the repeat or got away with it.
Got away with it. So you would have shitbag technicians actually show up before the time frame, or they would show up before you, and they would blow through the install before you even get there, and they'd bolt. And you'd show up and you'd be like, "Oh, hey, I'm here to do your home security," and they'd be like, "Yeah, the guy already came and gone." It's like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Well, then you go and look at all the shit he did, and it's terrible. So now you end up doing a triple install on top of your home security, because if you get a repeat on the TV tiling or the internet dropping or phone cutting in and out, that repeat now falls on you. Even though you did not have anything to do with the frickin' triple side of it, you would still end up getting the repeat.
Yeah, that's horse shit. Yeah, I feel you, man. They, you said it best. There's a lot of bad ones that make it bad for the good ones, but they've went so far down, so they're expecting so much more, and expecting so much more at the home, and giving you less of a buffer for it. So that's bad on morale. That's bad on the overall. And if all your techs are pissed off about it, that's not going to be good for the company.
And I agree with you. I've watched, again, I'm not going to name specifically anybody, but I've watched supervisors. It's that, like you said, if I can find that one 6-digit or 7-digit cable guy that is now way up there on the top, I'd shake his hand. I don't think you'd find that, or you could find that, but I know you said, well, they'll stick up for the tech and stick up for the little guy. You get to a point in your career when you start getting high up there where you need to decide which way you start tipping. I've actually watched a few of those supervisors start to transition into that, where they, they're your everyday great supervisor, and all of a sudden, I heard somebody say it one time, what do they freaking call? It was like a drone or a company drone. I don't know. They, drinking the Kool-Aid of the company kind of thing. Because you just slowly watch the supervisor start to tip more towards corporate. So I think any supervisor that's really listening out there, they're that line of communication for technicians. And it sucks for them, because I get it, because you have their managers jumping down their throats going, "Hey, upstairs wants your guys to make all these metrics, make it happen." And here you have this supervisor who's like, now they have to do ingress tests, and now I have to jump down them about this metric, and it just makes the supervisor look bad. So I mean, and so from the techs as well, give the supervisors a break, because it's not like they're home and they're like, "You know what, them son of a bitches, I'm going to lower their freaking repeats. That this is bullshit. They're too good." That's not your supervisor saying that. That's somebody from higher up. So it sucks for them too. I know this episode is about metrics, and I'm sure we'll have an episode about communication, but I really think it all comes about communication. Is you have high up, you have supervisor level, you have techs, and then you have dispatch. And they're all like their own little company, and they shouldn't be, because they all don't communicate, and that just shows so many points of failure.
I feel like if they wanted to get metrics right, the way to do that is you need to say the senior vice president and the president and the CEO of every major cable company in the country needs to go to an office. They need to fly down. They need to have even if it's over a couple of days, and they need to sit and talk to these guys that are on the ground floor, making them those 9-figure fucking paychecks they get, and say, why does this not work? Why does this not work? Why does this not work? And let these guys explain it to them.
Yeah.
And then let them take this information that they've gotten from the people who actually see it every single fucking day. Go back and let them say, okay, I understand why this is not good. Let's raise this up, or let's lower this, or whatever they're going to do, right?
Yeah.
but they need to have a good understanding of what it is they're requiring before they require it.
And I mean, companies have thrived to take those steps. I don't know if you're familiar with the NPS, the Net Promoter Score surveys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
These companies now implemented that their technicians dispatch, really, I'm pretty sure every part of the company. You now take this NPS survey, and it pretty much allows the technicians to go, hey, this is what's wrong, fix it. I don't know. It's tough to say it got abused because I felt like every LOB I went to, I just looked up there. It was, I need more time. Metrics suck. Need more time. Equipment sucks. My van rattles, so on and so forth. They never really used it to its full potential. Oh my God, that's right. Sorry. So with the Net Promoter Score, at the end, you could actually go in and manually type out a message, and they would have it. They'd show them during meetings and stuff. Well, I actually had a dispatcher that I'm pretty sure I've talked about her in the past. I can't bring up the name just because I don't want to get sued because I have said terrible, terrible things about her. But I had this specific dispatcher where she was the worst. But I remember specifically shouting out on her on that. I went as far as saying, I just want to thank Bleep Bleep so much for giving me one of the first missing lates this year. And I'm pretty sure I was like, she fucking sucks. She needs to be fired. And I continuously did that for weeks on end to the point where they actually started showing up on the boards during the meetings and they would just skip them. She actually ended up disappearing. I don't know what happened. I don't know if she got fired or they transferred her or I'm not sure what it is, but she was relentless, dude. She was oh God. I hate say it, like I had a lot of good dispatchers, and not even close are all dispatchers bad. They're mostly, again, you only hear about the bad ones. You never hear about the good ones. But 99% of dispatchers are good dispatchers. She was that one fucking percent that every fucking example could possibly come from her as a terrible dispatcher. She was
I'm highly certain she's
God.
probably like watching you with night vision goggles right now.
No, because she's too fucking stupid. She'd be putting them on backwards.
She's like, I'm gonna get that motherfucker. He got me fired.
God, I don't get it. My tits don't fit in the lens. Oh God, she was so, oh God, just the amount of, like, I'll never forget, she called me one time and I was driving and I was on my way to a 2 to 4 and it was like, I don't know, 150 and I was only 5 minutes away from my job. And so she called me when I was driving. I was big on not answering the phone while I was driving. Company policy, I don't really want to talk to them anyway, so it was a nice excuse not to have to pick up the phone, just listen to whatever they left for a message. Showed up at the job. From the time that she started calling me to when I showed up at the job was probably 5 minutes, and she probably lit up my phone 4 or 5 times. Finally got to the job, got out, and customer pulled into the driveway at the exact same time I pulled up. Again, it was an install for a 2 to 4. It was probably at this time like 1:55. Finally, she gets a hold of me, and she goes, hey. And I'm like, hey, what's up? She goes, you haven't been answering your phone. I said, yes, I was driving. We're not supposed to be talking on our phone while we're driving. And she's like, well, you need to go to this job. And I'm like, sorry, I'm at my 2 to 4. Well, you need to leave the 2 to 4. And I was like, if that's the case, I'll give the phone to the customer and you can sit here and explain to him why I just rolled up to his house for a 2 to 4, 5 minutes before 2, but now I have to leave to go do another job and he has to wait another hour or two for me to come back. And she's like, well, that's not my problem, blah, blah, blah. So more or less, because she sat on this job, didn't want to get rid of it, or was banking on the technician just taking it, now she made it other people's problems. And that was just a consistent issue with this dispatcher.
I went through that. We had, remember how I told you before that we got routed for work for like four or five extra techs that didn't even exist for like a year or 6 months or something.
Yeah.
I think it was 6 months. I'm pretty sure it's 5 or 6 months. During that time frame, we would consistently get jobs. I remember I got assigned to 1 to 3 at 6:30 at night,
Jesus Christ.
and I'm like, "Well, this sucks." And I sent a message and I think I'm going to be late to that one, and it was like a smart ass kind of remark.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't like we did have a lot of work, but the problem was that our dispatcher didn't manage it right because there was a bunch of contractors they had sit down there trying to help us get caught up,
Yeah.
and she just didn't manage it right, and it got so bad that she ended up having to ride with us like a different tech every day for like a week to see how far this city was from this city that was from this city to this city, right? So
Jesus.
she could kind of say, okay, yeah, I can't give it to this guy because he's way down here. I
Yeah.
don't wish anything bad on her. I think she was just like special. I'm pretty sure she rode the short bus, but I don't want her to get COVID.
Nah, I sure as fuck backed this bitch over. She was fucking horrendous, dude. All right. So if we could, as much as metrics suck, what is one thing that you did as a technician that would help improve your metrics if you were struggling on some?
I just did my job. I didn't fucking worry about like I'm not gonna make it here. I didn't feel pressure. I was like, that's not my problem. That's dispatch's problem.
So would you say one job at a time, pretty much?
Yeah, exactly. Just take one job at a time. Do your best job you can possibly do at that job. When you're done with it, then move on. It's not my job to move and like guys that run through shit or whatever. If somebody opens up, that's their job to swap shit out. Like if I'm going to miss a 1 to 3, but I could make another 2 to 5, or 2 to 4, whatever the hell they are now.
Yeah.
That's their job to change that shit around. That's not my job. So you need to look at it and say, okay, I can accomplish this, but I can't accomplish this and this. It's just unrealistic. So pick and choose what you feel is important to you. That's what I did. I wanted my repeat number to be better than anything, so I worked my ass off to do the job the right way instead of trying to do a bunch of jobs and having a good missed appointment number. So in reality, it's like I said earlier, you get like your kid. He picks a big car and a big toy. You're at the store. You got to fucking pick one. Just do your job at the job you're at. Don't worry about the next one or what time it is. Don't freak out like, oh shit, I'm not gonna make it, because that's gonna affect you on the job you're on at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Don't let yourself go to that. Just fucking do the job you're on, kick the shit out of it, make it the best it can possibly be, code it complete, say have a good day, then worry about the next one. That's the only way you can handle that. That is the absolutely only way that, to me, is healthy and will help you be successful. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, they want you to make everything, but if you are not having constant truck rolls back to houses, they don't really give a fuck about that missed appointment number. They don't really. There's a lot of these little dumbass metrics that they probably yell at you for, but they don't really give a fuck. If your repeats are good and you're not fed, your modems are in spec and your boxes are in spec, you're in good shape. So that's what I would do. Just worry about one job at a time. Don't fucking worry about the next one till you get there.
Fuck, I don't know. Again, I truly didn't give a fuck about metrics. I could truly think of a way to improve metrics. I guess it really depends on what that metric is. I think riding with other people is a good way to help with that. You learn how other people do things differently. I'd asked to ride out with different techs if I was struggling, and I'd pretty much just watch how they did shit all day long. We had this one kid, I want to mention his name because he's smart as a whip. I started working out with him. I almost hope he hears this. We worked out of Westford, Massachusetts together. We worked on the same team. When I was hired, I started working with him, and I'm pretty sure I worked with him all the way until I moved up north. But this kid was smart as fuck. I wish I told him how much I actually looked up to him. He knew everything. If anybody knew the stupid answer to the stupidest technical question out there, this was the kid to know it. So anytime I ever struggled on anything, even though I never really was like, hey, can I come watch how you do shit? I was always come like, hey, man, like, I'll come give you a hand for today. But it would really be like, all right, let's see what this kid does, because this kid knocks it out of the park. I mean, he was 0 repeats all the time. He was the kid that was always doing the testing for the new tools. He was just such a smart. I always told him he was too smart to be doing what he was doing. He should have been in the engineering department, and I hope he is at this point. If not, I hope he's more than a tech, because he definitely deserves it. He was a fucking smart kid. But that's what I did, is I looked at other techs when I was struggling at something specific. Post-it notes was huge. I always had a problem with downloading the apps and shit, so I'd put post-it notes on my dashboard to try to remind me for, shit like that. I mean, other than that, don't fucking dwell on them. Just do your job. I think it comes back to our episode, the trouble calls or the installs. Your metrics, just fucking replace the goddamn drop and look behind the goddamn wall plates. And if it's a fucking install, just replace all of it and just be done with it. And that should get your metrics right where they should be. Not so much missed and lates. You're a good example of that. You have good repeats and shit.
Not necessarily your missed appointments, but it'll get you where you need to be. I feel like, metrics suck. It's part of the job. I don't feel like they're going to get any easier. It seems like over my time in cable, they've went from like I said a long time ago. Me and you talked for years and years that this used to be the greatest job in the history of the world. You're out on your own. Go with a 8 to 10, 11 to 2, a 2 to 5, maybe 2 in one time frame. Nobody bothers you. You don't have shit up your ass. People yelling at you and shit. The metrics were like, I think you're right. They were like 12% repeats back then. So overall, it's went more. It's got tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I'm telling you right now, if I was a tech in the field, I'd probably get fired, because I ain't gonna force anybody to download any fucking app.
Yeah. Definitely causes tension. All right, man. Well, I think that wraps up our episode on metrics.
Yeah, we all hate it. It's part of life. It sucks. Let's move on. And that's that, man.
Can we just never, ever, ever fucking do an episode about fucking metrics again? Because it's terrible.
I think we knocked one out. We'll try to stay on different shit that we feel is more pertinent, but we wanted to hook up our boy Pio, I think that's how you say his name, out in California.
I'm going to feel like such a dick if the first time I'd be like, hey, this is our first episode that's suggested from one of our listeners, Pio, and it's probably going to be like Piero or some fucking crazy. He's probably like French. He sounds like he's from Paris.
I don't know. That's his name, Pio. I don't know. We'll go with it, but we wanted to hook you up, man. That's what you wanted. We gave you our background and our thoughts on metrics.
And if you guys have another thought for another episode that you want to hear, let us know. Again, hit us up on Facebook. We have the CATV Tech Talk page, and you always have the CATV Tech Talk at gmail.com. Not attention, only Jesse.
Yeah, you can send that to anybody. If you're pissed off, direct everything to Drew. If you want to give me some love for being the awesome, amazing, badass motherfucker that I am, just send it in and put attention, Jesse. I love you, and I'll definitely read that online on the air. But yeah, we love you guys. Hit us up, email, Facebook, you know it, and we're out.
Yeah, I'm fucking done. It's Sunday. It's 10:13. This was about metrics. It fucking sucked. Good night.
Peace.
Bye. Like what you just heard? Then don't forget to click that subscribe button. Questions for the hosts or just want to say hello? You can email us at catvtechtalk@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/catvtechs. Thanks again for joining us, and don't forget, climbing, crawling, drilling, driving is just the beginning.